episode of Pleasure Principles. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving into a conversation that's equal parts professional insight, and deeply personal lived experience. So, dear listeners, our guest is someone who embodies both the worlds. Please welcome Keri Green. So, welcome to the show, Keri.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion today, I would quickly love to introduce you with Keri. So, Keri is a licensed marriage and family therapist and AASECT certified sex therapist with over 20 years of experience, and at the same time, a single woman navigating dating in her 40s. So she brings not only her clinical expertise, but also her personal perspective on the relationships, intimacy, and sexuality in today's world. So this episode is going to feel both intimate and real because when you blend professional knowledge with the lived experience, you uncover the truths that most of us are too shy to say out loud. So, why to wait? Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Yes, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. So, and let's start with the personal side first. I mean, as a single woman dating in your 40s, uh, what has surprised you the most about the modern dating? I mean, if you can share.
What has surprised me the most about dating in my 40s?
Yeah, yeah.
Gosh.
Dating, yeah.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I think what's surprised me the most is how time consuming it is, how everyone is so different in what they're looking for. And just because someone can be intentional about wanting to find whether it's a long-term partner or it's someone to just simply to go out on an evening with and share a drink. Um, Everybody is coming from such different ways of life and different experiences. And it's really about that intention behind taking the time when we all live such busy lives to really get to know someone. And we can say we're ready to date and get to know someone, and maybe we actually aren't. And that's discovered very easily, I believe, in dating and putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And like, do you think that dating in your 40s brings a certain clarity about what you want, or does it sometimes make things more complicated?
I think it's both. I think it makes it a little bit more complicated dating. I don't want to say later in life because I don't want to call 40s later in life, but it's certainly later than typically people dating in their teens and 20s. I think it makes it a little bit more complicated with availability, with work schedules. I happen to be a single mother, so taking care of children. If the person you're looking to date is also a single parent, you may hit it off and, really have a lot in common, yet your schedules don't align, when you don't have your children. And so that makes it a little bit more difficult. So I think in that sense, it could definitely be a little bit more complicated. I also hope, at least for myself, to say that I know myself so much better in my 40s than I ever did in my 20s. And so I know what I both am looking for in dating. I also know what I can bring to a person and to a relationship. So I believe it's balancing both of those things.
Hmm. Understand. So, like, I mean, you have spent over like 2 decades guiding people through the intimacy, desire, and the connection. So, from that professional lens, what are the biggest shifts that you have seen in how people talk or don't talk about sex today?
I feel and have seen that over the years, I believe people are a lot more open minded than they used to be in talking about sex and desire and intimacy, whether that is with their therapist, with their girlfriends over a bottle of wine, with their partners. Yet I feel we have a long ways to go. I've practiced marriage and family therapy for over 20 years. It's only in the last few years that I really wanted to focus on sex therapy and work with clients specifically on their intimate relationships, both with themselves and with others, because I feel there are so many thoughts and feelings around sex and intimacy, yet most people aren't comfortable diving into that, not just with themselves, but especially with the person they are in a relationship with. And if I could be someone as a sex therapist to help support them and show them ways to be comfortable in speaking about those things, that is my biggest goal as a sex therapist.
Mm, got it. Got it. And like, do you think that the apps and the hookup culture have made people more open about sex or actually more guarded?
I again, I don't wanna say it's equal parts. I think it's opened up a lot more opportunities. I mean, back in the day when the apps were just starting, Tinder had the, reputation of being a hookup app, and you only went on Tinder if you were looking for a casual relationship and not a partner, not someone that you could be monogamous with, and I don't feel that's true for Tinder now. I think it's, along the lines of the other apps that are out there where the apps are very good at differentiating as long as the person is being honest in their profile, which isn't always the case, unfortunately, to show what you are looking for. There's a big difference if you say that you're looking just for a casual relationship, which is usually meaning sex, versus a long term relationship. Um, so I think the apps afford a lot more availability to meet people looking for different things. And some apps are very sex centered and very sex focused, where you would not go on those particular apps like Field if you are looking for a longer term relationship. Doesn't mean you can't find one on those apps, but those apps are very sex driven with the questions they ask and what people are looking for. Um, Again, the other side of that same coin in dating, yet also focusing on the apps specifically, there's always going to be the next person you could swipe right on or left on at your fingertips. And so I think the apps allow to meet and have a lot more options, which is a good thing. Yet at the same time, because it allows us to have so many options, we may not be as focused on really seeing what the person, right in front of us is offering if we're constantly trying to, look at the next option.
Got it. And like, I mean, yes, that's really fascinating because it highlights the paradox of our time. And like, sex is everywhere in media, but the real conversation about intimacy are still so rare. So yeah.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate, I mean, these days we're having a lot more streaming of TV, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, HBO, all the things. And I am really happy about how much more we are seeing on those types of streaming channels when it comes to sex. We're seeing a lot more of the, you know, non male, female, heterosexual relationships being played out. We're seeing a lot of different types of relationships in the movies and on the TV shows. We're seeing a lot of different types of sex that's being talked about in those movies and TV shows, whether it's ethical non monogamy or, more prevalence around one night stands, because a lot of people, again, are adding shame to a lot of their feelings around sex because of what the media has shown us growing up and what sex should and shouldn't be. So if I am having a client come to see me because they want to feel a certain way about sex or experience a certain thing about sex and it's somewhat taboo, they don't feel like they can own it and share it and experience it. And I want them to be able to do so. I always say, as long as it's consensual, as long as it's not illegal, I am not going to, as Emily Nagoski says, I'm not going to yuck somebody's yum. I'm not going to tell them that what they want to do or what they are, fantasizing about or want to try out is wrong. If that's what they want to do, I'm all for that as, their sex therapist because they are exploring their bodies and their sexuality. And I wish more people would do that.
Hmm. Totally agree. Totally agree. And okay. And one thing is, uh, like as a therapist, as a sex therapist, you often create a safe space for the vulnerability. But when you are dating personally, how do you navigate your own vulnerability? Like, is it harder to take off the therapist hat?
So it's so interesting, and I'm asked that question quite a bit by friends and certainly by people I date. I've dated both as a sex therapist and I've dated not as a sex therapist because the therapist piece is a little bit newer. Ever since I've been a therapist, sex has come up in a lot of conversations with clients, but it is now specifically what I focus on and what all of my clients come to see me about. So it is interesting dating as a therapist in general because, of course, because I'm a therapist, I also think this is just my personality. I care about how people feel. I'm very empathetic. I want to know how that situation affected them. So I may be asking more of those kinds of questions than someone dating who holds a different type of profession or degree. Then you add the extra layer of being a sex therapist, and you can only imagine what types of questions and thoughts come from the people that I'm dating as it relates to what I do every day. I mean, it allows me to really get to know someone quicker through conversation than maybe another woman they've been on a date with would be willing or not willing to talk about. Um,
Mm.
I believe dating as a sex therapist is intimidating to some men, and I can see where that is coming from. Yet at the end of the day, I'm just like anyone else. I'm wanting to find a partner. I'm wanting to be able to talk to somebody regardless of what it's about and have that person hold the space for me just as much as I want to do for them. I just happen to be someone who values sex in my personal life when it's available to me as much as a professional helping others have that same acceptance if that's what they're looking for.
Exactly. Hmm. Got it. Got it. And then, like, uh, do you find yourself like over analyzing interactions, or mm, are you able to just enjoy the moment? So, what about to say?
I would hope that I would be able to say, and I would hope that the people I've dated would support this. I am very much in the moment, especially when I am dating. I am only thinking and focusing on that person in front of me and the conversation that we are having. I think, again, this is just my personality in general, but even more so as a therapist, being open minded, being optimistic, being, hopeful. And I think that is refreshing to a lot of the men that I date. I also don't think it's something they are as used to in dating other people because, again, whether I'm having a conversation about sex or I'm having a conversation about sports, I'm going to own my truth and talk about what I know and ask questions about what I don't. And I just feel a lot of people in general are not confident in doing that. If they're not as comfortable with the topic, they're not going to speak about it. If they're not as educated about a topic, they're not going to speak to it. So, something I do provide and offer to any relationship, whether that's a professional relationship or a personal relationship, is my own truth. And that doesn't mean it's right and someone else's is wrong. Yet I really want to learn from others. I appreciate difference of opinions. I just love learning where people are coming from and where they gained that experience and insight to make the decisions that they're making.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think so many listeners would relate, like whether or not they are the therapist, but because we all struggle to balance the self awareness with simply being present. So that is something. Yeah.
Yes, that is something I definitely speak to a lot in therapy. If someone is able to sit and do a 5-minute meditation, they've definitely got to get themselves into a headspace to be able to sit there, be still, focus on, what words
Mm.
they're hearing. If someone's going to a yoga practice, they've got to be prepared to, do the breath work, move their body. They can't be thinking about, what am I making for dinner? Did I pack that thing in my child's backpack for tomorrow? It's very hard for most people to be still and be present and feel our bodies and feel our breath and really get into those senses. And just like meditative work, just like yoga practice, that is what I believe is a huge component of a healthy, comfortable, pleasurable sexual experience. If we can allow ourselves to get into that same space of
Mm.
comfort, mindfulness, self-awareness. Sex is very much mental, and being a therapist, that is what people are coming to see me about, where their head is at going into a sexual experience, in a sexual experience, after the sexual experience. And we know whether the sexual experience is solo, it is with one partner, it is with multiple partners. If we are present, but the other person or people are not, it changes the dynamic. How could it not?
Very well said. Yeah, definitely. And wow, like, mm, like many people assume that the therapist have it all figured it out when it comes to the relationships. But do you ever feel that um, expectation when you are dating?
It's funny you say that. I had quite a few sessions already today, and one of the couples I was working with, I kinda had to joke, but again, I own my truth. I said, "It might be ironic that here I am as a marriage and family therapist, and I'm divorced." So, we are human at the end of the day. There could be a librarian who does not like reading books as much as another librarian does. There could be a sex therapist who doesn't enjoy sex in their personal life as another sex therapist does. I am human. I try at relationships. Doesn't mean I'm any better than anyone else or more of an expert than anyone else. And I certainly use my personal journey if it could deem appropriate and helpful in a session. I don't ever lead with that. Of course, my clients' sessions are their sessions. Yet I know I don't have anything else to compare it to, but I feel like I know absolutely that my relationships over the years, especially my marriage and then eventual divorce, has led me to where I am today, both professionally and personally. And I wouldn't choose to have it any other way. I've grown, I've learned, and I can offer that insight to my clients when they're struggling in their relationships, when they are needing suggestions of how to connect more to their partner, if they realize it's not a relationship that's going to last, helping support them through that. And there is, good on the other side, even though breakups and divorces are hard. I am not going to minimize that. So I definitely feel my personal experience has only contributed to being a better therapist.
Lovely. And like when someone finds out that you are a sex therapist, does it change like how they approach you?
I think it definitely so back to what I was saying earlier, in my earlier days of dating and on different profiles, every app is of course different, but most of them do ask you to put your profession. I just put clinical therapist because that is in fact what I was and what I did.
Yeah.
Once I decided to take the time and money to go back and get this ASECT certification and really focus on sex therapy, I questioned, do I put sex therapist on my dating profile? Do I not? What type of person may approach me because of this, what person may approach me in a way that I don't want them to, but I thought, you know what? Again, back to my theme of owning my decisions and my life at this point, I put it on there and it definitely brings people to my profile at times that I may not match with and I appreciate their forthcoming and realize that's not, the type of person I'm looking for. Nothing, of course, against them, but they're very direct. Others who respect it and are curious about it and ask about it no differently than they would if I was any other profession. That's the type of person I'm looking for because I always say to them, whether I work at a bank or I help clients with, their sex lives every day. I am passionate about what I do. And so, therefore, especially in dating, that is a huge topic that people talk about, especially as they get to know each other and on, that first date. What do you do for a living? How did you get into that profession? So, it's someone who is comfortable asking me the questions and someone I want to engage in those types of conversations with.
Mm. Yeah. Amazing, amazing, and I mean that's so real. I mean, it reminds me that behind every little or the credentials, there's still a human who might.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I say, whether it's on a date or it's in a therapy session. I am also human. It's very, I don't want to say easy, but it's
Mhm.
I can sit and say to a couple, it would be great if you guys could have more conversations throughout the week and make time for each other throughout the week. It would be really nice if you could each be more, you know, intentional about initiating some form of touch. I can say all of these things. It doesn't mean that I practice them in my own life. And I'm currently single. So I'm very aware of that when I speak to clients that are in 5, 10, 15 plus year relationships. And again, I own that truth to them. I say to them, I'm currently single. So I don't know what it feels like day in and day out to share a life with someone as you guys are doing, especially as long as you're, doing it for. But I was in a marriage. I did date someone for this amount of time. But yes, at the end of the day, we are all human. We don't know what other people are going through. We don't know what someone's level of comfort is when it comes to desire and pleasure and sex. And so, whether it is, again, a friend I'm having a cup of coffee with or a new client I've never met before, I'm approaching it the same way, which is I will start any conversation at your comfort level. I will never push, I will never pressure. Again, my goal in all aspects of my life and all relationships I'm in is for the person to feel comfortable. That is number one, always going to be the most important thing to me.
Mm, exactly. And like you have worked with couples and countless couples, right, who are struggling with desire,
Yeah.
differences, intimacy blocks. Um, do you think that the long-term relationships in today's world require a kind of different tools than, say, like 20 years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, I think just the ability and availability of devices right now is something
Mm.
huge. I mean, maybe not so much in the last 20 years than maybe the last, 30, 40 years, but the divorce rate itself has gone up a ton. The lack of people willing to, go and get help for their marriage has decreased, meaning it's ironic that the statistics of breakups and divorce is increasing, yet people going to seek mental health support is increasing. And I think what I can speak to my clients, where I think that's coming from, is more people are willing to go and speak to a therapist. I have a client right now, a couple right now, they've been dating for 4 months. And I have a couple right now who's been married for 35 years. So it's not like it used to be. We're only going to go see a therapist if our relationship is about to end, if we're about to get divorced. People are really open minded more so now than I believe they've ever been in seeking that professional help and guidance. Yet, one of the outcomes, I'm not going to use the word consequence because I don't know if I necessarily look at it as a negative. One of the outcomes of therapy is ending a relationship. Because when you go and speak to someone and own your truth and get some guidance from that professional, you might realize this is not the relationship for me anymore. I've changed. You've changed. We don't want the same things. Our level of desire is different. And I don't know if I want to have it be where it's at for the rest of my life. We've only been together for 5 years. So, even though the breakup divorce rate is increasing, so are the amount of people willing to get mental health support. And of course, as a therapist, I appreciate that.
Mm, true. Exactly. Wow. And how much of that change is cultural? Like, how much is simply uh, the timeless challenge of two people growing together.
Two people doing what together?
Growing together.
I I mean, I'm a very big believer. It's kind of the corny saying, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I've seen couples like the one I just mentioned who've been together for 35 plus years. They've raised their children. They are genuinely happy. You don't see that very often. I
Yeah.
see too many couples staying in relationships where they are not happy. And I don't mean their partner annoys them and bugs them. Those are things that are going to happen in any relationship. I always say that I am not an advocate of divorce by any means, but I am an advocate of being happy. And relationships are hard, and I will support any relationship, friends, clients, as long as there's not any form of active abuse. I will help anyone, any couple as much as I can to make their relationship better, healthier, more sexual, whatever it is they're looking for, if both of them are wanting the same things. But what makes me sad is as people grow and change over time,
Mm.
sometimes that relationship cannot withstand that. And instead of, well, we've been together for 15 years, we have two kids, it would be expensive if we separated. I get all of that. I also, though, want those two people to be happy. And if there is a possibility that they could be happier and be more authentic and true to themselves, yet that also means ending the relationship, sometimes that is the outcome that happens. And so I'm there for that as well. Sometimes my couples don't stay together. Sometimes my clients end their relationships. And that is definitely the hardest part about my job when I see that happen. But it's unfortunately reality that that happens.
Mm. Sure. Exactly. Ah, and I love like how you frame the relationships as both evolving with the culture and anchored in universal struggle. And it really makes the work of intimacy both ancient and modern.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it will continue to be. And, again, as long as someone, and this is not meant to sound easy because it's not, as long as someone is willing to start with their own conversations with themselves. What is intimacy to me? What is sexuality to me? What do I bring to a relationship, whether that's an intimate relationship or the relationship I have as a parent, to my child? What am I bringing to the relationship? Where am I falling short? And I want to work on those things. All of those factors, I believe, are very important.
Exactly. And this might sound contradictory, but actually not. Um, like some people argue that we are overcomplicating the relationships today, that uh, all the therapy, communication, self work takes away the natural spark. So, uh, would you say to that? I mean,
I definitely agree that there is a component to making a lot of things in our lives harder than they need to be. I probably say that a handful of times a week over the course of my therapy sessions. I probably say that to my own children a few times a week. I probably even say that to myself. We really need to pick and choose the things that are worth really taking the time and energy on, because life is a lot. And if we overcomplicate, overanalyze, over communicate everything, we're going to be exhausted. We're not going to have any energy at the end of the day to have sex, even if we want to have a conversation, even if we want to. So it kind of comes back to self awareness. How important is this thing in front of me? And how much energy, time, money am I going to give it? And until we know ourselves well enough to answer that question, usually we fall into one of two extremes. We don't give it any thought or attention, whether that's avoidant or that's just not being willing to make the time for it. Or we go to the complete other end of the spectrum and spend way too much time and energy on it that it doesn't deserve. And therefore, we're neglecting other things we could have been doing with that time and energy. So I think it really starts with coming back to us as humans, our relationship with ourselves, and how well we know ourselves as we evolve and accept the changes within ourselves, and really kind of picking and choosing those battles so we don't overcomplicate relationships any more than we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that too much of self analysis can sometimes get in the way of just feeling?
Please say that part again.
I'm saying like I mean, what do you think? Like too much of self analysis uh, sometimes get in a way of kind of just a feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Again, we are our biggest.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I would love us to be our biggest cheerleader, but sometimes we are our biggest critic. And if we overanalyze life, we're obviously in turn also probably most likely overanalyzing ourselves, which I believe is what you're, referring to. And there are things about ourselves that we should question and analyze and take time on. And other things we just need to own and trust and be confident in. And if it doesn't work out the way we are hoping it would work out, I believe 9 times out of 10, we have the opportunity to make a different decision next time. Of course, if it's a huge life-changing decision, ending a relationship, moving across the country for a job, that's not the same thing as, "Oh gosh, I chose oatmeal for breakfast today. I kinda wish I had, a bagel." But a lot of people are not confident in their choices. They don't trust themselves in their choices. So like I said, we tend to live in a lot of extremes, black or white. I'm either not going to make a decision or I'm going to make a huge decision that I might, wish I had given it a little bit more thought.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, definitely. And also, like, you talk a lot about the safety and the pleasure in the body. For the listeners who may feel disconnected from themselves, what's a simple first step to start reclaiming that connection? What do you suggest?
So, with that exact scenario, I would start with where are you, if at all, comfortable in your body? What are you okay doing? What are you okay thinking? The example I give usually to women, but this certainly, applies to men. I always ask them, where is the one place that you are typically by yourself and completely naked, literally and figuratively? And the answer is the shower. And so I recommend to my clients who don't even know where to start that they take that opportunity while they are already by themselves, while they are already naked in the shower. Does not have to lead to anything sexually. I always say if it does, great. Just be in that moment with your body. Don't rush through washing your hair because you've got to, hop out and wake the kids up for school. Don't rush through putting the soap on your body and, not really be present to the smell, to the feeling. It's a perfect opportunity if we even take 5 more seconds massaging the shampoo into our scalp. How does that feel? Do I like the way my hands feel in my hair? Do I like the smell of this new, shampoo I just got? Because any of those sensations and awareness of our body and connecting to our body, whether it's sexually or not, in my opinion, is absolutely going to help us win there is a sexual experience and we want to connect better to our body. So I use that as a starting point. Where are you comfortable and where are you willing to go a little itty bit outside your comfort zone? And just like anything else, it's exposure, it's building from there.
Sure. And how do you encourage people who feel shame or resistance to even begin that journey?
I think we all want to feel a sense of connection and not feel that we are alone. So, whether a client comes to me and it's the first time I'm hearing about something or it's the 100th time I'm hearing about something, I am going to thank them for sharing what they shared with me. I'm going to normalize their feelings of possible shame or embarrassment. And then we're going to slowly start to reframe those feelings and how can we make it where it is no longer something to feel ashamed or embarrassed about and heal from those feelings, possibly work through that trauma if there's trauma associated with that, and reframe it into something that we can accept, we want to accept, and we are comfortable with.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. Got it. Got it. And lovely. I really love that. I mean, that's a powerful reminder that pleasure doesn't have to start with another person. I mean, it all begins with self-compassion. Wow, lovely.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's no different than that, oxygen mask, analogy. If we I truly believe if we ourselves are shut down, are neglecting, are not in a relationship, however we define that, within our own bodies, sexual or otherwise, it is not impossible, but it is a lot more difficult to try and then connect with another person. So it doesn't mean someone has to be a certain way sexually to be that same way with a partner. Yet, for those who are more comfortable with their bodies, who are willing to experience pleasure, they are going to bring that additional layer to their partners in a shared experience.
Mm, agree. Agree.
Yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. So, Kerry, thank you so much for bringing both your professional wisdom and your personal truth to this conversation. And what I love about today's episode is that it wasn't just a theory. It's it was a raw, lived, and beautifully human. So, uh, for all the listeners, I'd love to mention, like, if there's one thing to take away, it's this, like, pleasure, intimacy, and the connection are not the luxuries. They are the essential parts of being alive. Like, whether you are in your 20s, 40s, or beyond, your journey with the desire is valid, evolving, and worth exploring. So, I'd say go out there and ask yourself, like, what feels good, what feels true, and what kind of intimacy do I want to create in my life? So that's a great question to think about, right? So and Kiri, like, before we move, uh, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium?
The best way to connect with me is through my website. It is my name. So Keri Green, KeriGreen, and then LMFT.com.
Perfect. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for easy reference. And until next time, this is your host Avik reminding you that pleasure isn't just about the sex, but it's all about living fully, openly, and unapologetically. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.